Hey everybody, welcome to the Whistle featuring your host Reco Jackson. I want to welcome you to the show today. I hope y'all like my new intro music. It's an original. Today I come with a different topic on the Whistle, and as you all know, with a whistle, when a referee blows that whistle or anybody blows a whistle, he's trying to get your attention. So these are some of the things that I feel like we should have attention brought to, some of the important issues in our community. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was the spirituality outweigh education and science. Or let me rephrase that. Is the importance of value of education and science being diminished by spirituality and religion? And today I have four panelists, four good brothers, that I know gonna give me some very, very good opinions, some very valid opinions, and some facts that will, give us some clarification on just how deep science and education is in our community. And really and truly, if we need to make more of an effort to get back to education and science. So today I want to start off with introducing all my panelists. I got Donald Toussaint from the Morning Glow. Well, I'm gonna let y'all introduce yourself and tell where you're from. Starting with Donald Toussaint. You're on mute, Donald. Uh-oh. And let me move on a little. And
oh my God. I'm done. I'm done already, bro. We just get started and I'm done.
Oh man.
What's
Introduce yourself, Leonard. I know we gonna get it. We gonna get it right, man.
Yes, sir. This is Leonard Jones, national spokesperson, New Order National Human Rights Organization. Also on the Morning Glow and Real Men Being Men, man. It's good to be with you, Reco.
I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate you, brother. I know you're gonna give me some real good insight, man. And I got my next guest, my brother Algernon Dopplemore Sr.
What? How you doing, everybody? I'm Algernon Dopplemore Sr., and I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
And I'm also a seminary student, so this should be fun.
Question, before we even can I ask a question, Reco?
Yeah, go ahead.
Brother, where'd you get your name from?
Oh, my God.
Oh, Algernon.
Yeah. You inquiring about the first name or the last name, bro?
Your first name.
The first name is actually my uncle's middle name, my mom's brother. And she kind of liked it. It's also the novel Flowers for Algernon.
Exactly. That's what. That's where I heard. That's the only place I've ever heard it. It's from that novel. So that's what made me ask you about it. Okay. Yeah. I thought so. Okay.
There go Donald. You with us, Donald? Can you introduce yourself to introduce? Oh, he might have a bad connection.
Yeah,
it sounds like it's a little delay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this, my brother. I think we're gonna have some people calling in too, because this should be a pretty deep topic. A lot of people, as in our community, not just in general. I mean, I want to speak in general as far as mankind, but in our community, we have a lot of different beliefs that we come up with, and this morning I brought up the subject of voodoo, or somebody else brought up the subject of voodoo. And I've heard people talk about the Muslim religion and, different reasons why people don't get involved. But, in some of those instances, I went back and researched on my own, and I talked to people that did some of these practices, and I found out a different concept, a different reasoning behind why they did it. And I found out that it was some scare tactics involved. Some of it involved race. And, you know, I was wondering, you know, did you guys ever come across some of those situations where it seemed like spirituality was overruling education, or we didn't take the time out to educate ourselves about some of the spiritual things that were put in our place, in our faces? Go ahead, Algernon. Can you hear me?
Oh, you asked me to go? No problem. I look at it more than one way. Let me start by saying that. Even when you come down to church, religion, spirituality, whatever angle you're coming from, I feel like a lot more things that we should do to be more personal with one another. Like, you know, in church, you can pray for things and pray for things and pray for things, but faith without works is dead, number one. Number two, you can't ask God for blessings or the creator or whatever you choose to relate it as to give you blessings that you aren't prepared for or aren't able to handle. You know, it's like somebody giving me $50 million just because.
Right.
You know,
right.
And I have no idea how to invest that or how to build on that. You know,
because you lack the education.
Right.
So,
right. You know, I believe that in our community, we need to get to know each other a lot more holistically. I would say, you know, it's many things. You look at a person. A person is a 3-part being. You know, they say mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit. You know, for your mind, you have to educate yourself, whether it be being an architect or a scientist or a doctor, or, you know, with your body. You know, it's good to keep yourself in shape, but you also have to have the knowledge to know how to do that. You know, your soul. If whether you believe in Judaism or Hinduism or you're a Baptist, you still have to be able to also be educated to fully understand that. Right. So I mean, nothing is possible without education, and science is definitely important.
Right. Mm-hmm. You see, me, I always felt when I was young and just pictured how things went till we got to the point we were. I felt like before man learned how to survive, well, that was the first instinct. You know, religion or spirituality may have existed to some extent, but for the most part, I think people had to find out how to survive. They used earth sciences. They found out how to grow food. It was just so many other things that they had to learn. And so over time, you know, I realized that had to be very important for our survival. But if you study history, you do realize that at one point in time, certain points in times in history, the church and science were at odds, and they still may be at odds. You know, I know certain reasons why it could be. At certain time, I didn't like science because I felt like science would try to sort of take me away from believing in God. But somehow I came back and brought it back full circle and still made them relate. But I'm asking this to Leonard. Do you see a drop off in, especially the Black community, a lack of value for education and science?
Unfortunately, yes. Yes. This is why we have such an emphasis on STEM programs and things of that nature, because one of the things about being independent is related to intelligence. Intelligence almost always increases your fight for independence. The more you read, the more you become aware of things, the more you start to see yourself in a different angle. Your perspective changes. Now, if you are in a closed system where you're being dictated to and indoctrinated into a way of being, and you never explore anything else, a person can get you to believe and do anything. Mm-hmm. And so we have to understand where once knowledge is definitely power in that sense. However, we have to understand that with that power comes a responsibility. Science has always operated independent of political or religious concern. Mm-hmm. And so science is not concerned with whether something is right or wrong. It takes a Christian scientist to pose that question. A scientist really wants the knowledge to figure out God is science.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Science is how we explain these things.
Mm-hmm.
And the more technologically advanced we become, we can dispense with a lot of myth. Because you have to remember, I don't care, people may not like the particular word, but at some point, religion is always on the borderline of myth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have to remember, it was not always written. It was an oral tradition.
Right. Right.
And then writing came along, and then the need to lie and falsify writings became important.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you come now when the church wants political power. So now it uses its political power to try to stifle what brings independence to a people that they had subjected to their rule for so long.
Right. Right.
So now you see the same phenomenon almost. However, we have to add something else on top of that that's causing the issue. This whole adjective called black.
Mm-hmm.
Black people don't understand enough about what they believe.
Exactly.
They accept it,
Oh my God.
but they don't understand enough about it to stand on it and be secure. This is what makes the preacher so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're going to always have to have someone that is professing something that somebody else don't know nothing about.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And where you did not have political and social power, it was still made to the motivating force to our freedom was our spiritual power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we put that into action by rebellion, where one, you have those people who exploit race tell you the exact opposite. Christianity never controlled black people that in that form, the way a lot of people present it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Black people were told that they could no longer practice their religions, and they were pretty much everything was wiped out from their various cultures. And when the elders died, a lot of the information was lost.
So tell me something. Could that be the reason why the community is going in the backwards direction? Because at one point in time, that curious and that motivation to be educated and that curiosity to learn is what did get us through a lot of oppression and a lot of miseducation that we went through. We still had some traits of maybe some of what our ancestors left us, when it maybe came to different practices of treating wounds or whatever, or treating illnesses. And because nowadays you don't really hear that. I have a problem when I go out in public to barbershops or different situations where I'm around other men that can give out advice to our younger generation. They're telling them that education is a waste of time. Going to college is a waste of time. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, how can you be telling somebody that education is a waste of time when our culture is responsible for educating civilization?
Exactly.
We are the first original educators. I mean, so Donald, give me a little bit of what you got going on, Donald. Let me get something, Donald.
You get nothing but that delay.
It's bad, ain't it?
Yeah, I can tell when the whole screen stops.
So I wonder if it frozen up again.
But
I wonder if there's any callers on the line. Are there any callers on the line?
There's at least one.
Let me get that one caller.
At the beginning.
Oh, okay. What's your name and where you calling from?
Okay, is it me that you're speaking to?
Yes. The only person I know on the line is you, sir.
Well, you got to know who this is, Reco. This is Brett.
What's going on with you, Brett?
Not a whole lot. I'm sitting back. I probably was the first one to check in, and I've been listening to the dialogue and waiting.
Go ahead and bless me with a little something, man. What's your opinion on that? On the spirituality and education and science. You know, I think you sort of get where I come from with that, the importance of education and science in our culture.
From the beginning, I would say from the beginning of the concerted effort to educate the United States of America, the process has always been in play to miseducate, always.
Mm-hmm.
Always. To hide facts, hide information, hide all of that, and change the scenarios and make things not as they are. Take it 2 steps back. Indo-European culture. And you know, I've said this to you many times. Every Indo-European culture that has ever been established in the history of the world has devolved in the same way that America is devolving now.
Mm-hmm.
I said to you about the 300. The 300 was about the Greeks going to war, but their culture was to take little boys into the army, not only teach them how to fight, but teach them how to be good sex partners.
Mm.
So it's not a surprise that this whole process has come full circle. We are living in a culture that is dominated by Indo-European sensibilities.
Right, right.
So everybody is getting the miseducation, not just Black people. Everybody.
Everybody.
Is getting miseducated. So, and I want to say that, you know, I study statistics.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that Black people are becoming less interested in education is not substantiated by the stats. The stats say that there are more people, more Black people graduating high school, going to college, seeking knowledge. That's what the facts say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there might be a couple of knuckleheads running around the hood with that same old rhetoric, but that's not the national mentality.
Right,
at
right.
all. We have to, as long as we stay in proximity to Europeans, we have to devolve right along with them.
Mm-hmm.
There's an expectation of the Black community that we be more than the soil that we're planted in. And that's not fair. We do overstand a lot of this nonsense because we are the ones that ask the questions, the hard questions. Is this really fact?
Right.
You can only be as good as the soil in which you are planted.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we don't seek knowledge. Yes, we absolutely do. I see it all the time. People coming and wanting to know and finding out and putting those search engines up. It is us who established the fact that we were here long before Christopher Columbus even dropped from his mama's womb. It was us that did that.
Right.
When we first come out of slavery, we built cities, towns, and inclines. You heard me say this all the time. There was 100 of them all over the United States. The savages burnt them all down. It's not that we don't have this up here. We have an impediment that is far greater than we are willing to admit in the determination of the European to keep us. And that's the long and short of it. We got to get away from them. If we don't, we're going to stay the same way.
All right, let me go to the next call. I appreciate that, Britt, man. Hang on, don't go nowhere. I like that. That was deep. I got another call on the line. If you can, tell me where you're from and your name.
Hey, this is I'm having some
serious technical difficulties today.
Now that's Donald.
Yeah, man, I'm here this time.
All right, that's good, man. We thought you were asleep for a second. Leonard cleared it up and said it was the technology going on. Had a little technical difficulties.
Yeah, my phone's on me, so hey, it is what it is, brother.
Yeah. Give me a little 2 cents on that, man. Tell me how you feel. I mean, can science and the churches coexist?
It can, but there are dictators in the religious sect that won't have it because they thirst for power. Always have been like that. At one time when science, and I did a little quick look at this, when science started, people start being curious about how things arrived, and they start searching into, and then they start trying to look at religion and God and how things came about. And because of the Roman Catholics, basically, they were kind of looking at the power that they had, the influence that they had on mankind.
Right.
And science was taken away from that, even to the point where they came up with, there was a Big Bang theory and things evolved. They start setting folks afire. I say the same thing is going on now because science has to have some sort of evidence. Spirituality is at least, maybe perhaps including Christianity, we walk by faith. I know I do. You don't have to show me that Moses parted the Red Sea. I just believe it. Or Noah built an ark. By faith, I trust in the things that God said in the beginning. There was heaven and earth. Compare that with the Big Bang theory. Okay, what you with nothing, what you gonna bang it against?
Right.
It has to be something. In the beginning, God. People try to figure out, well, somebody has to be there for that. No, it is just, this is what I believe. He's Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. He's not existing in time. And I don't want to take too much time, but, that's why they clash, because science has to have an explanation. Well, let me throw this out. They say that man evolved from an ape, right?
Right.
Okay, here's the way that I look at that, and I'm gonna shut up after this. A frog evolves from a tadpole, right? That's two truths, according to them.
Right.
So my question is, when the frog exists, the tadpole stop existing. What in the world is the rest of the apes waiting on?
Exactly. That's deep. That's something you said when you brought up that Big Bang. I ain't gonna even lie. Well, I remember when I was in high school, man, when I got to that part of science, that was some of my first time making D's and F's when they went to talking about Big Bang, because what I started hearing was they were taking God out of the equation. And I grew up in a church-going family, especially one side of my family full of preachers. So I always grew up with this respect that I owe all of this to God. And hearing that in about the 8th grade, oh man, that was devastating to me. I mean, I was like, I couldn't sleep at night because I was trying to figure out what it was I was hearing. So that's one of the dilemmas that keeps science and the church or spirituality from connecting. But I got one more call. I'm gonna go to the next caller. Caller, what's your name and where you calling from? Hello, caller.
Hey, hello.
Oh, what's your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, my name's Andre. I'm calling
Andre.
Franklin.
From where?
Franklin.
Franklin.
Yeah.
Franklin, Louisiana?
Yeah.
Okay, man. It's nice having you on, man. Go. Let us hear what you feel on this.
Well, you know, you can't discredit science when you talk about God because I mean, He created everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I can this much, you know, talking to some of the points about this spirituality and how it affects the community moving in a forward direction, when it pertains to the church. Anytime there's a pivotal, which is been pretty consistent historically, the church has always had to endure some crisis transitions in culture. And I think at this point right now, the church should consider changing the church model, not necessarily deviating away from the functionality of the church that Scripture teaches. The culture's changing. You know, it's a high political climate. There's a lot of topics, a lot of conversation. I personally think, and I'm not discrediting anybody or any denomination, I just don't think that we have, we've really had an opportunity to educate ourselves on the facts. You know, we read a book or watch a YouTube video, but sometimes it's good just to do your own homework.
Very good.
You know, people need simplicity when it comes to spirituality. Not everybody's going to be able to understand theology and, you know, exegesis and eschatology and the study of the Bible and the books of the Bible. They're not going to understand the historical context at all if we're not able to kind of communicate those ideas in a simple, very simplified form. And God is very simple. But moving forward as a people, I heard a brother mention not too long ago, you know, about the European, the climate of Europeans enslaving, you know, the people of color since, you know, they had their formation. This is biblical. It's written in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that God was going to put some folks on a boat and scatter them and send them all over the world. That's something that was written. I think
Right.
at this point right now, just truly finding that where we fit in that whole grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who do we belong to? How are we gonna move forward as a people? I heard a brother tell me this the other day. You know, just because we got the same color skin don't mean we can't.
Right, definitely.
Check the timing on some of your own folks too. So I think right now, I'm not gonna say it's every man for themselves, but it is extremely important for each individual to get to truth on their own.
Right. I know this morning they have a radio show on the station called The Morning Glow, and I brought up the subject of voodoo because it was brought up before I brought it back around. And the reason why I brought it up because when I was young, I was always afraid of it. You know, I looked at it as just totally off limits and evil, and which I'm still not saying is something that people should go towards or drift towards. But the more I talk to people that may have practiced it or researched it myself, I realized that it started having a racial connotation to the moralizing of it. You know, when it started being looked at as negative. And I started looking up and seeing words where they were saying that I think they called it benevolent white magic and evil black magic. And so they label voodoo evil black magic, but as I started talking to more people that dealt in this in Santeria and different things like that, they talk about having more of a connection with nature and the earth, and also along with that spirituality. And so, that made me always think, that sort of made me think then, well, how many more religions or how many more different things is in society in general do we look past because we have been told that you don't want to get involved in that? Like I told Raheem earlier, at one point in time, I heard people call Uncle Tom the bad guy. For a long time, I heard people say, Uncle Tom, you don't want to be like Uncle Tom, but little do we know, once we do a little research, we find out Uncle Tom was the good guy. He was actually the one in our favor. So we took somebody else's mindset or opinion about Uncle Tom and ran with it the same way as education or science, because I hear now a lot more in our community. Let's talk about science. Even though, you have a lot of people use science to trace their DNA back to long lines of the legacies that has to do with Christ. People want to trace that legacy, the royal bloodlines. They still want to use that science, but the Catholic Church is not with it to a certain extent. So I mean, what really is, what can be done within our community to get, I'm gonna say, get more of an emphasis on education, the sciences, to get people to understand that we were once more educated and scientific people.
I don't think it's about getting folks interested as much as it is about our children have not seen us as those scientists.
Mm-hmm.
The children of scientists practice science.
Right.
The usually it's not uncommon for children to become doctors. So now we have to reprogram our children to understand how important it is to get involved in these things, as opposed to becoming a quick buck guy.
Right.
The entertainers, or athlete or something of that nature. And so, we have to make sure that the choice is always there. Spirituality, I have an issue with people changing the meanings of words and things like that, because that would be nothing more than what the church and stuff has done. This is this miseducation issue. The church has there are several truths with the church that they will never teach. When you talk about tracing your bloodlines back to royal heritage, people don't want you to do that, because then they have to admit to their lie.
Right.
So this is the issue that keeps people from doing things. But on a smaller scale, we just have to get people to understand that this is what's going on around you. Do you want to be a part of this, a part of that? We want those individuals, as Louis Farrakhan always tells us, engineers, doctors, lawyers, and all. That's what makes society progress and makes it sustainable.
Right.
What was happening is the church was failing to do anything for anyone. And now we're in that situation where now the church don't even see. Some churches, I'm like, if you don't have an outreach ministry, why you even got a church? So these simple things we have to incorporate, because church used to be a lot more than going somewhere on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Everybody learned about their culture. And I'm not just, saying that when you got to go learn about this particular or that particular, learn about your culture, whatever your culture may be. If it is American culture, study that. Then if you're looking for truth, you're going to get to it. Guess what? Black people, those are black people. Yes. And then that's going to create that thirst for you.
Mm-hmm.
But right now we're so distracted by what's popular, hip, things like that it's real high level. You don't go very much in depth. You just know enough to say you hate somebody else, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm with the Christians. I was born and raised a Christian, and I've always been Muslim. But I understand Christianity and salvation.
Right.
I understand the benefits of practicing meditation and everything, and studying various religions, to understand how we got to where we at, not to sit there and point the finger and say, oh, you evil people.
Right.
But to say, let's do it right. Let's make it right. We ain't gonna try to offend nobody, but if truth offends you, then you are a lie. If truth offends you, you're the liar.
See,
This is non-negotiable.
You know what I was told? I talked to a person that practiced in voodoo. My first time talking to him, I was like so standoffish. I didn't want to hear nothing about it. They could tell by the look on my face that I was just automatically put off by it. But they made a comment to me before. I mean, they didn't even have to get into what this meant or that meant. They just made the comment that it isn't the practice that's bad. It's bad people with bad agendas use the practice for bad reasons.
Just
and
like
when
Christians.
I thought about that, I thought about the Catholic Church. I thought about so many different things. And I was like, you know what, man, that made a lot of sense to me. And that's when I decided then to find out a little bit more about it. And I'm like, they deal with a lot of herbs and natural herb type stuff, things that really and truly I felt like we should be more, I'm going to say, informed of. Things that we should have been kept up with over time. Some of these natural remedies that are involved in some of these cultures that we were told, stay away from that. That's bad business, witchcraft and this and that. So give me a little bit of answer, because you from Louisiana. I know y'all Louisiana guys, man, could give us a little bit about the conception of voodoo down now.
Here's my perspective on various forms of, that type of spirituality. As a Christian, I would even go as far as to say, apart from being a Christian, let's just say I have a citizenship as well. Mm-hmm. That if I'm an American citizen and we have all these bills of rights and constitutions and laws and bylaws, but I think heaven is also a country as well, and heaven has its own set of rules too. And so as a Christian that has an American citizenship, that has a heavenly, I have to respect that form of government and what they say. So when it comes to other forms of practices, and I've crossed these paths before, the Wiccans, voodoo, and a few other different ones, not to discredit them, but as a Christian, I have to deal with those types of things through scripture. So my reference to you, first and foremost, the greatest wizard to ever live was King Solomon. Mm-hmm. However, there's nobody who practiced magic better than Solomon did. And he's in the middle of the book. He wrote all your Proverbs. He wrote Ecclesiastes. He gave you Songs of Solomon. So when I look at this one particular storyline in the Old Testament with a king named Saul, God took issue with Saul because he did something. He went to a medium.
Yes, he did.
And he had the spirit of Samuel, which means magic do work.
Speak to the dead.
Practice magic. But they had the soul of Samuel, the prophet, come out of the grave to come and share some words with Saul. Went to a medium.
All right.
Saul was put to death. Let me tell you something. You have to be very careful to mediate anything to you, especially if God didn't authorize. Because you can put yourself in a very vulnerable situation with God. He is very clear about mediums, mediators. Like for believers, Christ would be that mediator. Mm-hmm. I would have to go as far as to say the first form of media God ever created was the mind, because the mind mediates information to your body and to your spirit. So what you're putting in your head is going to ultimately go to your body and to your spirit. News, TV, all these media outlets, social media. You see, these things are very dangerous in the eyes of God, because you have to be very careful of what you receive and what you're hearing. If you go to that word and you see where Saul addressed one of his issues using a medium, using some form of witchcraft, he was put to death behind. So God changed, and it's not to scare anybody, at all. But when it comes to, different forms of spiritualist movement, you have to go and determine if the doctrine is suitable and based on, if you're a Christian, what God says about it. And that's generally one of the things that I like to do, I don't discredit anybody, but if someone brings something to me and say, "Hey, look, you know, you should do this and do this and do that and think and grow rich and whatever the case may be," I hear you. But the first thing I want to find out is where did that doctrine originate? Who introduced that doctrine?
Exactly.
What
was the purpose behind it?
Huh?
So who came up with it and what was their purpose behind it?
What was the purpose behind it? And I can promise you, I hate to say it this way, but they got a lot of European folk behind a lot of stuff we don't know about.
Yep. But give me a little something, Algernon.
By carefully listening to everybody on the panel, and we're talking about education, science, religion, I'm still understanding something from maybe a scientific standpoint. As I've been sitting here listening, I'm learning. And in the case, I'm learning from elders. So when you talk about elders, you know, this is something that's still missing in our communities. A lot of people may have the need to want to learn, but a lot of people don't know where to go. Just like the brother spoke about outreach. I think it's time, like, for instance, this is an awesome feeling to listen to all these brothers, you know, and the things they have to say, and it gives you something to go on, something to think about, and something to research. You know, what about people that don't have access, you know, to this type of platform, and people that just don't understand what's going on? So I think it's important for brothers to start to build together, brothers and sisters alike.
Right.
You know, I'm right now, I'm just listening.
Right. I appreciate that, man. Give me what you got, Britt.
Okay, where we at? Can you still hear me?
Can I still hear you? Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello. Yes. Okay. Well, basically, all the bases have been covered from where I'm sitting. I think the first essential, most important thing to do is separate the chaff from the wheat. All the Christians in the room, hear me. All the stuff that is biblical from all the stuff that is not biblical. There is a specific confluence between science and religion, especially when you talk about the Big Bang Theory. You come from the perspective that scientists are trying to disprove the existence of God, when in reality, what they're trying to do is explain how God created. You hear me?
I get it.
The Big Bang Theory is an explanation of how God created the heavens and the earth. Not that God didn't do it, that the Big Bang Theory came out of nowhere. You talk to scientists today, the scientists of today say that because of the mathematics required and involved in the creation of the universe, they unequivocally believe that a mind had to produce these things.
Right.
The stuff just didn't pop out of nowhere.
Right. You know, that's what brought it back full circle for me. That's what made me get back unafraid of science. I call them the intelligent designer. Some things it was just too perfect for it to be a mistake or accidental.
Yeah. If you guys want to get a very thorough address on the science and the math and all that good stuff, alchemy and everything, it's a non-canonized book, but you know, I've read it quite a few different times, and I've even been describing Hebrew and Israel, the Book of Enoch. Absolutely. If you really want to
mention that this morning,
the book I can lay it all out for you. It'll tell you who the
absolutely
is. It'll tell you who all those folks are and how it got here. So, you know, there's literature out there that young folks for sure, you know, would like to delve into because they got questions. They want to know. They want to know.
Absolutely.
They want to ask. But
Yeah.
reference, I would highly recommend reading Enoch, just to kind of get a little peek on how all this stuff transpired. You know.
Right.
It's a great publication. Here's the hook for me: is what we have devolved into is being in disagreement with one another based on each individual sets of beliefs. Now, you know, I've said this a bunch of times. The Dogon people, they believe that everybody came from outer space.
Mm-hmm.
Right next door, and broken down to its lowest common denominator, that's what they believe. Everybody came from outer space, from the planet, from the star Sirius.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Yoruba people that live right next door to them don't believe no such thing. They got their own pantheon of deities that they worship and their own style of worship and all that. But they get along fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They ain't beefing. They ain't going through nothing like that. And fast forward to what Malcolm X said in April of 1964. You from Africa? You a Christian? You a black Jew? It doesn't make a difference. You got that lowest common denominator, and you've got one common enemy.
Yep.
We have lost that understanding here.
Yep.
And now we sit back and, okay, you not woke, so I can't mess with you. And you don't believe that there's pyramid in the Mississippi Valley, so I can't mess with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right? You got men against women and all that. But that's where our problem lies at. That divisionistic. Now, and I'm saying this, that came from the European, because the European came out of the cave savage. Fight.
The classification.
You look at what they do, you see it, and we live with them. So we are getting to be more and more and more like them. We got to back up.
And also I want to add, because these brothers are saying the right thing, and what has happened is it is being revealed now, and more people are searching for things.
Mm-hmm.
And really, people would probably explain me as a person who comes to attack and all these things, but I sit at the tables with people from various religions because I'm very interested in these points of view, because we're all here together. We all have a commonality. We should be against those who are trying to take that away from us. We should always be pursuing. See, this is the thing. They'll continue to maximize themselves, but they have to subordinate you. And this is where every black person that goes to church should be standing up and like, it's not that segregation is the issue. We shouldn't worship with you all.
Mm-hmm.
You don't worship what we worship. So there's no need. This is why we're separated. Because have you ever met somebody and they just seem so fake?
Right.
Because they are.
Stop.
It's because they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a story in the book of Acts. I like to use the Constitution of the Kingdom of Heaven as a reference. There's a story in the book of Acts. There's a brother named Philip who was translated to a river, and he met up with an Ethiopian eunuch.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He was riding on a chariot being pulled by, I would say, escorts, and he was reading the scriptures. He was reading Hebrew, which means he was a Jew. And Philip, there was a portion in there he didn't understand, and Philip gave him the explanation. He baptized him, and then the Ethiopian eunuch went into Jerusalem to worship. That critical scripture, that part in history, is clear that before Europeans had any contact with the gospel, that it was already established in Ethiopia.
Already.
So that was an original people who understood the entire landscape of God through the scriptures, through that particular people. The Europeans didn't get this message until, after the first, I think 150 years, once they started establishing the churches, and then they started dealing with Constantine, and they started doing the Council of Nicaea and Constantinople. That's when those folks started to get a little bit more acclimated to that. Christianity.
Can I drop one?
Huh?
Can I drop one on you?
Man, drop a big.
Just a little one. Just a little one. It's when the Greeks entered into Ethiopia that they began to get an understanding of our level of spirituality. That's when it all began. But I just wanted to say that a lot of people operate under the assumption that all the people in the Nicene Creed were white or Greek or Roman or European, and that is absolutely not a fact.
Right.
All of Constantine's right-hand man was a black man.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the 600 some odd bishops that came from the different provinces of Africa. Period.
The cradle of civilization.
Out there.
Can I throw something out here?
Go ahead, Don.
Do you think that when they built the Tower of Babel, there wasn't a science to them building that tower that high?
Had to be.
You think if they didn't have it all together, the architects and all of this kind of stuff, I'm not too bright, but you think it would have failed long before they got to the third floor? I'm just saying. We try to put what our problem is we try to put God in our own box. But there's a science to everything.
Right.
And he gives people the mind to think. But we said this before, we want to have dominion over each other. So if I outthink you, then you're going to discredit me. Because in our minds, we want to be little gods. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, can somebody actually use spirituality or religion to suppress you from wanting to get an education, or to looking at science as something negative?
We do it all the time because I believe that that's how denominations form. Because you don't think like me, or you think you hear a message and the revelation from God just explodes your mind to thinking more, because God is more than just what's
written,
really even written on paper. He's a spirit, and he will broaden your. That's why one said, enlarge my territory, because it must be a little bit bigger than what I got now, or what I got going on. So if the more you ask of him the wisdom, the more he has wisdom to give you. There's no such thing as the smartest man on earth.
Right.
You know, they said Solomon was wise, but Solomon also played the fool.
Right.
You know.
And also, a lot of times we don't understand, like the one brother says, separating the wheat from the chaff and things of that nature. And what people don't understand, those folks who operate at this higher level, quote, in the church, they are usually a part of organizations behind the scenes. These people still practice the same rituals back in the day. They still behave like pagans. But see, when they come in front of you, they face change. And then they try to tell you everything you need to know just to stay beneath them. See, the preacher didn't need education before, because if he was truly called, he could perform. You understand?
Right. Right.
God would show up. See, when you go to them churches, ain't no singing and dance, ain't no Holy Ghost, because it ain't coming over there.
Mm-hmm.
How do you when you actually, and see, they separated you from the language that you used to use, and they labeled everything that you had evil and bad.
Right. Right.
Now you sit there and you watch Africans dancing and carrying on and worship, and you look at them, and white folks got you believing something wrong with them.
I definitely grew up thinking that.
If I put some skirt and a mask on you on church on Sunday, guess what you look like?
Mm-hmm.
So we have this notion that for somehow we can't have them all. Your brain is such that it can separate. As the one brother said about reading the Bible, I love the word. I love reading the Bible. I love religion and things like that and the nature of them or what have you. But there are just some things in the Bible that leap out at you from every religion you study. And anybody who sits you see the Orthodox, whatever they call themselves, Orthodox, white Christian church does is try to suppress. If you have the original power, you have no need to try to suppress everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so when my brothers refer to Christianity as a white folks religion, I would have to sit with them and to help to see if we could have a conversation on about what it really is about. It's not so much about being right or wrong, more so about being in control and in power. And if I can convince you to kneel, it's much easier than forcing you to. So if I can just bless you enough, you might just follow me. So it's
a method to their madness, though.
Yes.
In that, if I can convince you, if I can separate you from the word of truth that came out of your concept, then I got you.
I got you.
The easiest way to do that is to put such a sour taste in your mouth about your own religion.
Yes.
Your own culture that you never go near. That is why the image of Christ, it has been made over into a white man. After all we've been through, underneath of white suppressionism. I don't call it white supremacy because in white folks it's not supreme. White suppressionism.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now you got kids. Hey, why are we gonna worship Jesus? That's the first thing they be asking. Why are we gonna worship any Jesus at all? It's a big trick game. See, what is that old bromide? The Lord works in mysterious ways, and the devil does what? Plays in stranger. It's very, very complicated. This is what we've got to introduce back into the process. There is such thing as the devil. There is such thing as people who are the children of the Most Low. That's one of the things that we've got away from. We've got away from teaching that everybody is God's child. That's not
right.
That's the concept that the European has put in there, and that is how they are able to suppress everything else. And at the same time, bring in that same savagery that they've been having for a couple of thousand years, where it's all right for people of the same sex to become involved. The church, the European church has sanctioned that. Come on, that ain't in the Bible. That ain't in the Bible nowhere.
And also, Reco, we have to realize also, even though like we have this knowledge and it's new and we're trying to get it out and get people to understand, we also have to be conscious of the fact that there are white people who don't know it, who don't know.
They don't know, right.
They simply believe everything that you was told.
The exact same thing.
So imagine them having a faith that they no longer can hold on to.
Right, right. I mean, you know, we got to get ready to get out of here in a minute. But you know, this is one thing I said that I'm glad that I came up in this time and this era, because this awakening, this enlightenment, I think, and the word enlightenment used to be a bad thing, looked upon
The
negative.
church tried to demonize that as well.
Right. But see, now is the awakening is so awesome because you're meeting people across a broad spectrum that's realizing that, man, these people that we thought were beneath us are really the reason why we are what we are. And they want to start to find out who demonized us, who made us dummies, savage, who turned it around. But brothers, I'm gonna tell y'all, man, y'all gave us that work today. I want to do a part 2 on this. If I can, I'd like to invite y'all back next week. Same bat time, same bat take place. If y'all would like to come, I really would love for y'all to show up, man. I appreciate everybody for coming. I went over my time a little bit. I don't want Raheem to hit me upside my head. So I'm going to have to get on up out of here. And, man, I want to appreciate, like I said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Wilson featuring Coblo. And hopefully you tune in next week. Thank you once again. Peace.
Peace and love.
Peace.
Peace.